All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some pretty choppy waters.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about Pixar and Disney and all the controversies surrounding their upcoming show, Win or Lose. You know, the show's centered around this middle school softball team,
Right.
but with a really cool twist.
Yeah.
Each episode is told from a different character's perspective.
Wow.
So there was initially, a lot of excitement about Win or Lose. I mean, it was going to be Pixar's very first, TV series
Oh, wow.
with a female lead.
Right.
And then to top it off, they were going to feature a transgender character.
You know, it was poised to be a really significant moment for representation.
Oh, absolutely. And then
Yeah.
Disney just yanks the storyline.
Oh, wow.
And there's been a ton of backlash.
Yeah.
So we're here to really unpack the situation from all angles.
For sure.
Like what went into the decision,
Yeah.
explore the reactions from all sides, and then really delve into the whole, bigger picture of LGBTQ plus representation in media. Okay.
I'm ready.
Are you ready to go on this journey with us?
Let's dive in.
Okay, great. So,
The story revolves around Willow.
okay.
She's a 12-year-old transgender girl on the softball team.
Gotcha.
And the initial idea was to explore, her experiences and her perspective.
Right. I read that they were actually
Yeah.
planning to cast a transgender actress to voice Willow.
Wow.
And she even went on social media
Really?
to express how disappointed she was.
Yeah.
Like almost hinting that this decision was based more on fear of backlash
That's interesting.
than creative concerns.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
Yeah,
And while Disney hasn't said anything officially
right.
about why they removed the storyline, several sources point to internal discussions and concerns about, negative reactions.
Makes you wonder how much of, the scrutiny Disney's been under lately played into this decision.
Yeah. Some former Pixar employees have actually gone on record saying that the studio has a history of, minimizing or even cutting LGBTQ plus representation in their films.
So this isn't just like a case of
Right.
cancel culture or, just internet outrage.
No, it's much deeper than
The
that.
disappointment seems to go way deeper.
Especially within Pixar itself.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of Pixar employees have spoken out saying that they see this as a huge step backward
in terms of,
for inclusivity and representation.
and I'd imagine the LGBTQ plus community and, advocacy groups feel the same way.
Absolutely. They're saying this sends a really negative message.
Makes you think about,
And that it contributes to the erasure of transgender experiences.
who gets to decide which stories get told
That's a big question.
and whose voices get heard.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like...
This isn't happening in a vacuum.
Exactly. We can't ignore that.
Disney's facing increasing scrutiny and political pressure when it comes to, LGBTQ plus content.
Especially in kids' media.
Yeah, it's like we're seeing this clash.
This tug of war between people who want more inclusivity
Right.
and then those who say, these topics aren't appropriate for kids.
Yeah, and that forces us to really think about
It does.
the arguments for and against inclusion
Mm-hmm.
and really confront some uncomfortable truths
Right.
about why these decisions get made.
Yeah. And that brings us to a much bigger discussion about representation in media as a whole.
Right. And the impact it has on how we see the world.
Exactly.
Are you ready to go there?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So when you look back, it's really interesting to see, how LGBTQ plus representation in media has evolved.
Or not evolved.
Right. Exactly. I mean, for decades,
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus characters were pretty much absent from mainstream media.
And when they did show up,
Yeah.
it was usually like stereotypical or even negative portrayals.
Right. Which makes you think about the impact those limited portrayals had on young viewers, especially,
Especially.
those who might be questioning their own identity.
That's a good point. How do we balance the argument that some topics are inappropriate for kids
Yeah.
with the need for diverse representation?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the arguments against inclusion are about, protecting children from difficult topics.
Right.
But if you look at the history of children's shows,
Yeah.
they've tackled some pretty heavy stuff.
Like what?
Like death, divorce, bullying, racism.
Yeah.
I mean, those are real-life
These
experiences.
that kids deal with.
Exploring them through stories can actually help kids understand and cope.
Exactly.
It's funny, though. Sometimes I think kids are way more open-minded
Oh, yeah.
than we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
Like, they're naturally curious about the world.
Right.
So why are we trying to shelter them from different perspectives?
It doesn't really help them in the long run.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, exposure to different identities and experiences.
It helps them develop empathy and understanding.
Exactly.
And it gives them a
Okay.
broader worldview.
Right. And in the case of Win or Lose,
the transgender storyline wasn't even about, introducing these complex adult themes.
right, it was just about...
It was simply acknowledging
Yeah.
that transgender people exist and that they have experiences too.
It's ironic because Win or Lose
Yeah.
had the potential to be groundbreaking,
It did.
with its approach to representation.
With telling each episode from a different character's perspective.
Exactly. They could have provided such a nuanced and authentic look into Willow's life as a transgender girl.
It really was a missed opportunity.
Instead, we're left with a void where a powerful story could have been.
And this decision goes beyond just win or lose.
Yeah.
It reflects this bigger cultural and political climate
That
that feels increasingly hostile towards LGBTQ plus rights and representation
So this incident is just one example.
of a much larger pattern.
Yeah, like the book banning.
Exactly, the don't say gay laws, all this rhetoric.
It's scary. And in that context,
It is.
this decision sends a very specific message,
It does. It says that some stories are okay
and some aren't.
and others aren't. It reinforces the idea that some identities are worthy of being seen,
And celebrated.
while others are pushed into the shadows.
This really highlights
It does.
that the fight for inclusivity and representation,
Far from over.
we can't be complacent.
No, we can't afford to accept these setbacks as just the way things are.
So where do we go from here?
Right. How do we make sure that diverse voices get heard?
And that all children see themselves in the stories they watch.
It's a big challenge.
It is.
It's going to take all of us.
So what can we do?
Well, we can start by holding companies like Disney accountable.
So we have a voice as consumers,
You do.
as viewers,
We can choose to support content that aligns with our values.
and speak out against decisions that are harmful or regressive,
We can use our platforms,
like social media,
social media conversations, whatever, to amplify the voices.
of those who are fighting for more inclusivity.
Exactly. We can challenge those narratives that want to keep people excluded.
And we can support organizations.
Yes, organizations and initiatives that are actually championing LGBTQ plus rights and representation.
It's about recognizing
It is.
that representation isn't just about checking boxes.
No, it's not.
It's about acknowledging the worth and dignity of every single person,
Regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation.
and understanding that inclusivity isn't a threat.
It's not.
It's a chance to create
For
richer,
nuance
more human stories.
that connect with a wider audience.
I'm curious about your perspective on the reactions from the LGBTQ plus community,
Yeah.
especially transgender individuals.
It's been really tough to see the pain, the disappointment, the sense of betrayal.
Especially from a community that's been
Yeah.
marginalized and misrepresented for so long.
This feels like a step backward.
Like, progress is so fragile,
It is.
and it can be undone so easily.
Especially when fear and the desire to please those who oppose inclusion are the driving forces.
Yeah, it raises some big questions
It does.
about why these decisions are made.
Are companies really committed to diversity and inclusion?
Or are they just trying to protect their profits?
Right.
This whole situation has really sparked a lot of debate
It has.
and introspection. So what's the takeaway?
I think the main thing to remember
What do you want our listeners to think about?
is that this isn't just about one show or one storyline.
Yeah.
It's about how powerful representation is
Okay.
and how it shapes our understanding of ourselves and the world.
It's about recognizing
It is.
that the fight for equality
And inclusion.
is never really over.
You always have to be vigilant.
Always have to advocate.
Yeah.
We can't take progress for granted,
No,
and we need to challenge anyone who tries to divide us.
absolutely. We have to be critical consumers of media
Yeah, engage in thoughtful conversations.
and use our voices to create a more just and equitable society for everyone.
You've given us a lot to consider. So where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
What's next in this whole, evolving landscape of representation?
Yeah, it feels like we're at this point where, like, the demand for more diverse stories
Right.
is clashing with this pushback.
Yeah.
And companies like Disney are kind of stuck in the middle,
Yeah. It's a tough spot to be in.
trying to balance everything.
Trying to keep everyone happy.
But I think, true representation,
Right.
it goes beyond just tokenism.
Absolutely.
It's about showcasing
Yeah.
the actual lived experiences of diverse people and communities.
Right. And that means a deeper commitment to inclusivity. like on every level.
From the writers.
The writers, the
Yeah.
casting, everyone.
It's not enough to just include diverse characters.
No, it's not.
Those characters need to be well-developed,
Relatable.
and their stories need to be told.
With nuance, with sensitivity, with respect.
For those listening who might be feeling kind of discouraged by all this, what would you say to them?
You know, it's totally understandable to feel let down,
Yeah.
but progress isn't always a straight line.
You hit bumps along the way. You do. You hit bumps, you take detours.
So what's important?
What's important is that we don't let these setbacks control the narrative.
Okay, so we turn that frustration into action.
Exactly.
What does that look like?
Well, for starters, we can be more mindful about the media we consume.
So support content that reflects our values.
Right, and amplify the work of creators who are genuinely committed to inclusivity.
Okay, and we can hold companies accountable.
Yeah, whether it's through social media letters or just choosing to spend our money elsewhere.
Voting with our wallets and our voices.
Exactly. And remember, change takes time.
It does.
It takes effort. It takes all of us working together.
But build a more inclusive and equitable world.
Yeah, this whole conversation has been really eye-opening.
It has.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
what's the most important thing for our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think it comes down to
Yeah.
representation matters.
It does.
It shapes how we see ourselves in the world around us.
It can inspire.
It can empower. It can create a sense of belonging.
So we need to keep pushing for more inclusivity in media.
Knowing that what we do can actually make a difference.
That's a really powerful thought. I love that.
Yeah, and it's not just about entertainment.
No, it's about creating a world.
Where everyone feels seen
Heard.
and valued.
This has been such an amazing deep dive.
It has.
And I hope our listener will keep exploring this really important topic and think about the role you can play in shaping a more inclusive future for everyone.